wonderful sponsors. And if you are here representing yourself as a sponsor, I want you to please come up at this time while we do the recognition for these. The Fort Worth Air Power Council, the DeBose Family Foundation, Andrews Distributing, Dr. John Desray, Texas Motors Ford, Bell Helicopter, Chesapeake Energy, and the Kiowa Casino. If you're here representing those today, please come forward. We'd like for you to help present our certificates. The first award we are awarding today are for 5 veterans from World War II and forward. Very special awards. The first one being the Fort Worth Air Power Council Foundation Award is presented to Mr. Joe Simpson. For his outstanding military service record in defense of our nation in World War II, I want to tell you just a bit about Mr. Simpson. He entered the Army in 1944, and after only 6 months of service, was engaged in combat, fighting in perhaps the most important European conflict, the Battle of the Bulge. It took place outside of Bastogne in freezing weather with 4 feet of snow on the ground. His unit was crossing the Roar River when his boat was shot from under him. He was in the water from 3 a.m. until the first light at 7 a.m. before being rescued. 7 on that boat perished. He was then credited with saving his platoon when he repulsed an enemy assault with his Browning automatic, and that action earned him the Bronze Star. As a consequence of the severe weather, like many others, he suffered severe frostbite. His feet were operated on in a victory ship on the way home, where he was later discharged. Thank you so much, Mr. Simpson. Our next award is presented by the John Desray Award, and it's to retired Major Walter Douglas. In recognition of his very impressive military service record in the defense of our nation, also in World War II. As a young man, he joined the Army in September of 1940. After basic, he was shipped to England, a 30-day trip, including a 15-day delay in Halifax while his convoy was assembling. He was commissioned as a second lieutenant in 1943 upon graduation from cadet training. He was then transferred to B-24 training, then was assigned to B-17s in the European theater, where he flew 34 combat missions. It was there that he received the Distinguished Flying Cross for saving his B-17 and his crew when his plane was badly damaged. After the war, he was assigned to fly B-36 and B-52 bombers. He retired in 1963 after serving his nation for over 22 very impressive years. Thank you so much for your service, Mr. Douglas. Very special award is from the DeBose Family Foundation, presented to Mr. Duncan Guest. In recognition of your dedicated and important military service to our nation in World War II. Mr. Duncan Guest entered World War II in August of 1943, serving in the Navy as an aviation machinist mate. He sailed from the U.S. on a freighter. Top speed was 11 knots. The ship arrived in the Christmas Islands 11 days later, where 2 men jumped overboard trying to desert. The captain announced, "Anyone wishing to join them, go ahead. The sharks were hungry. The sailors being transported were restricted to their bunks below decks, which were stacked 9 high with a 3-foot passageway in between. He had to endure this confinement for 28 days until they reached the Russell Islands. In the movie Shawshank Redemption, when Andy Dufresne was placed in solitary confinement, at least he didn't have to worry about the prison being sunk. He worked at the Russell Islands, helping to stage personnel and supplies. He then was moved to New Georgia, where he helped support Marines fighting the Japanese. He then went to Munda. He thought he would be sent home, but he was returned back to the Russell Islands because he was recognized for doing an outstanding job and a need for him to remain in the theater. He then went to New Guinea, joining in an invasion fleet. The carrier he was on was raked by gunfire by a torpedo plane. He advised the crews where to go to avoid being hit. He then went to Samar, a captured airfield. He noticed starving children eating from garbage and set about to get his buddies to share some of their food with the kids. And they did. He was assigned to a fuel barge, and manning it alone, he was leaking fuel into the water. A PT boat came up and demanded fuel. As they pulled away, the fuel ignited. A boat nearby came to his aid, and on the second attempt was able to make a life-saving jump to safety, but he still bears the scars from the experience. On his return home, his ship was caught up in a historic typhoon, but made it, finally, under the Golden Gate Bridge. Thank you so much, Mr. Duncan, yes, for your service to this nation.